Yo, what is up guys, Gray here, and today we are back with our IBL D-League playoffs. We're going up against MidPokeMaster and the Kentucky Torracats. And first off, as you can see, we are on Showdown, so we got about 20 minutes into our battle, and Nintendo Wi-Fi kind of just shit itself, and we ended up having, we were debating whether we should just redo it on Wi-Fi, but we thought it might be easier just to do it on Showdown so we can talk through the turns without having to tab in and out all the time, which would be great. And it was a good job we did, because my internet actually crashed about 10 minutes later. So if we tried to recreate it and then my internet died, we'd probably have just gone to Showdown anyway. So yeah, that's why we are on Showdown. First of all, you can see both of the teams here, but I will go through the two teams. I have not got a tab open, which is fantastic for me. Let me just get the two teams up, because that would be very helpful. I could actually tell you what the teams are. So mid draft is slightly different to how to the team we faced first. So earlier in the season, I believe it was week 3, we faced mid and we lost 4-0. It could have gone either way. Had I not got the static paralysis on my Tapu Bulu, I think I just kind of swept up his team late game. But unfortunately that's not how things went. We did get a static and we end up losing 4-0, so yeah, not ideal. Going into this matchup, I definitely had to change the team up quite a bit. I am running a few of the same mons, but at the same time we do have a few different mons from when we battled him last. Most notably, that is the Toxapex. We also have Regirock and Raichu, which are different, but neither of those are going to come. It's just a Toxapex. Mid has also made his own trades, and I can't remember what he traded away, but he has Celesteela now, and that thing is a problem, because like I said before, Tapu Bulu did just kind of win, so now he's got a Celesteela. I really need to chunk that thing down quite a bit before I can actually win with Bulu. I need to watch out for the static again on the Zapdos. So the plan this time is to not bring Bulu in unless it's definitely going to win me the game. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Mid's team is Garchomp, which is his one and only Z-user, Ninetales, Alolan, Celesteela, Necrozma, Mega Blastoise, Darmanitan, Umbreon, Chesnaught, Zapdos, and Miltank. One of the very few 10 Mon teams. I think he might be the only 10 Mon team actually in the entire league. So yeah, his team is very scary, and because of that, I felt like I really needed to change my prep, especially because he had the Celesteela. This time I had no choice but to bring Victini, I felt, because Celesteela was that much of a threat. And as prepared as I am, I don't have his team, the team I brought against him, up. So, first off, I'm going to start at like the Toxapex end and work my way along, because that end is kind of more standard than the Togekiss end. So, first up, we have got our Toxapex, running kind of a mixed bulk set with 252 in HP, 196 in defense, and 60 in special defense, with a calm nature. Scald, Substitute, Toxic, and Recover with the Black Sludge. Did a couple of mocks, and Toxapex kind of just let Zapdos in for free. It also let in Celesteela for free, and in all honesty, couldn't do a whole lot back. I was initially running 3 moves, Recover, which was a terrible set. I just completely got destroyed, it did nothing. So I changed that to Scald, what was the second move? I think I ran Scald, Frost Breath, because of the Veil, Toxic, and Recover. And again, it just did nothing. Like, sure, it could catch the Zapdos on a switch in, but it really couldn't do anything with the Celesteela. It could burn it, but I still got seeded, and then he could set up a sub, and it was just a bad time. So I ended up thinking, you know what, Toxapex does cause a couple of switches, especially, or most notably, with Darmanitan and Mega Blastoise, both of which I'm expecting to come, because both do a decent amount to my team. But I can set up a sub on both of those, because firstly, Blastoise can't do enough damage to me unless it's modest with Hidden Power Electric or Ground or whatever Hidden Power he wants to run that's super effective. And I don't necessarily expect him to. I expect him to run like Scald, Ice Beam, I don't even know what, Dark Pulse maybe, Aura Sphere maybe. I don't know, like I expected him to run something to hit something else on my team, not necessarily Toxapex, and of course I expected Rapid Spin as his last move. But yeah, Toxapex was just really good for setting up a sub on the almost definite switch out into either Garchomp, which was slightly risky for Skull Burns, Celesteela, or the Zapdos. And if I set up a sub, then with the Black Sludge and obviously Regenerator when I switch out, I'm going to be in a good enough place that I can just Toxic, or I can Scold on the Celesteela, force it to to attack me, and then the game plan is that I go out into Mega Aggron on his Celesteela to take a Leech Seed, and then I switch out into my Hydreigon set, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, I had a way of dealing with Celesteela and slowly whittling it down, but having a burn will be really nice. But that's the Toxapex. It's kind of here as just a pivot and to be able to sub up and really cause some issues for his defensive mons. Next up we have Tapu Bulu, same set as last time, like almost identical, I think, if not identical entirely. Choice Scarf with Wood Hammer, Horn Leech, Stone Edge and Nature's Madness. Adamant with 188 in speed, 60 in HP, 4 in defense and special defense, and max attack. I believe this is just to outspeed all of his uninvested team. So as long as he doesn't have a Choice Scarfer, then this thing outspeeds everything. And it just does a ton of damage. If he doesn't bring Celesteela for whatever reason, then it's a similar scenario as last time. I can just start firing off Wood Hammers, Horn Leeches. It just does so much damage in the grassy terrain. And for things like his Zapdos, which seems like a likely switch in, and also the Celesteela, I guess, to an extent, I got Stone Edge and I got Nature's Madness. So I can just chip away at the Celesteela potentially, or I can do around half to the Zapdos, depending whether it's defensive or not. And yeah, Bulu is just kind of here as a late game win con, as long as the right things have gone down. Notably the Zapdos, the Celesteela, and potentially a Scarf Darmanitan. If for whatever reason he is a Sap Sipper Miltank, which I absolutely do not expect, then yeah, it can just kind of sweep up. Next up we've got Hydreigon, and this Hydreigon set was really nice. It's Dark Pulse, Defog, Taunt and Roost with a Rocky Helmet, and I'm running a Timid Nature with 156 in HP, 36 in defense, 132 in special attack, 12 in special defense and 172 in speed, which seems like a weird set. But the defense, the bulk investment is there specifically to not be OHKO'd or 2-hit KO'd by certain things on his team. Things like a Choice Scarf Jolly Darmanitan cannot 2-hit KO me with U-turn. I think a Dragon Claw, or no, it might be an Outrage. It's got to be Dragon Claw, there's no way I live in Outrage. Dragon Claw from his Garchomp will not OHKO me after Rocks, I want to believe. His Mega Blastoise cannot OHKO me with Aura Sphere. It's, yeah, the bulk's just there to be nice. The Timid speed tier is to outspeed a modest, I think it's a modest Zapdos. I want to say I speed corrupt his, a fully, man, I'm stumbling over words. The speed is to outspeed a max speed modest Zapdos, is what I'm fairly sure I'm running here. Because he ran modest in the last match. I don't think he necessarily fears my Hydreigon with Zapdos for whatever reason, and decided to run modest, and I kind of expect him to run it modest again. It does do a lot of damage, and it doesn't necessarily want the Timid Nature. It would rather be bulky, I believe, in this matchup. So yeah, it's there to outspeed the Zapdos, and Taunt is just so nice against mid's team. If he brings Celesteela, I can Taunt that, and I can whittle it down with Dark Pulse. If he's going to attack me, he's got to attack me with Heavy Slam, and that's going to be damaging himself with the Rocky Helmet. Darmanitan, again, I can switch in. U-turn will do a pretty good amount of damage to me, but at the same time, there's nothing else on his team outside the Garchomp that actually forces me to switch. I outspeed most of his team, and I can Taunt or I can Roost, whatever I need to do. Taunt works on the Zapdos as well, stops it from defogging, potentially toxic me. Also stops him from roosting, so again I can just whittle him down with Dark Pulse. It's the only move I really needed in this game, because I didn't feel like Umbreon was coming this week, and even though it did, again I could Taunt, and it would be long and arduous, but I would 100% be able to win that 1v1, just out of sheer determination, I think. Because he would then have to keep attacking me with Foul Play, and I can kind of work around it. I can keep my Dark Pulse PP for as long as I can, or I can just switch out and go into something else and deal with it that way. But I didn't expect Umbreon to turn up this time. I definitely expected Miltank over Umbreon, just because I felt like with him having Center Stealer this time, my Victini was much more obvious, and Miltank does a better job of checking it than Umbreon does. So that's my Hydreigon. Next up we've got Mega Aggron with Heavy Slam, Thunder Punch, Toxic and Stealth Rock. 252 in HP, 68 defense, and 188 with a Careful nature in that special defense. This thing's not really here to do a job particularly, it's here to set up rocks. He doesn't have the best removal, as well as the fact that if he runs Defog on Zapdos and not Rapid Spin on his Mega Blastoise, then the rocks can go just sit there, and I can pressure his Blastoise pretty nicely, and it does give me a free switch into Bulu or into I guess my Toxapex and sub up again, which will cause him some issues because he's going to slowly be whistled down by it. But yeah, his if he doesn't run any removal, then Stealth Rock is really nice against his team. Heavy Slam hits most of his team for a decent amount of damage, most that Aggron can do. And Thunder Punch is pretty much just there for the Mega Blastoise and the Center Stealer. Neither particularly appreciate it. The Toxic is nice for pretty much everything on his team. Nothing can OHKO me outside of an Adamant Choice Banded Darmanitan. But if that's the set he runs, that's the set he runs. Like I have my switch-ins to it. They're not great switch-ins because they will still take damage, but at the same time I do have my switch-ins. Means that Mega Aggron doesn't have to run Metal Burst like I did last time and just completely sack it off just to clear the Darmanitan threat. Next up we have the standard Victini for me, the Fiery MZ Z Sunny Day set with Blue Flare, Solar Beam and Glaciate as well. I'm running a very weird mix of bulk on this set. I'm running 28 HP, 28 defense, 36 in Spadef, 196 in special attack, and 220 with a timid nature in the speed. These are all very specific. I can't remember the calcs, but I'm fairly sure it's I can live an Earthquake from a Garchomp. Outside of grassy terrain, there's various other things like I can live a Dark Pulse from a modest max special attack Blastoise. I think Earthquake from Adamant, Scarf, Darmanitan. There was loads of calcs, I can't remember all of them, but the bulk was there to be able to live one and be able to pop off my Z Sunny Day. And depending on sets, this set can also just run through his team. Like I said, I expected Miltank to turn up this time, but once it's at half, it still can't take a Blue Flare in the sun, and everything else doesn't appreciate his other moves. Solar Beam will do half to a Mega Blastoise, Glaciate will do about 70 to 80% to a max HP Garchomp, and outside of that, Blue Flare in the sun kind of just decimates his team. Even the Darmanitan doesn't really want to take a Blue Flare in the sun particularly. So yeah, Victini is here as something of a win con should Bulu for whatever reason go down, and it's paired up quite nicely with the Togekiss this week that is running Dazzling Gleam, Nasty Plot, Fire Blast and Baton Pass. All those moves sound, Blast and Pass really screwed me up there, but with leftovers, and 244 in HP, 108 defense, 84 in Spadef with a Calm Nature, 68 in Special Attack, and 4 in HP, in Speed. That's just for any potential speed creeps, I can at least match it. The rest of it is just in bulk to be able to live certain hits. I know the Careful Nature is to live a Thunderbolt from a modest max Special Attack, I think Life Orb Zapdos, which is kind of crazy that it lives that, but it gives me that Nasty Plot if I need to. And if I can Nasty Plot Baton Pass into Victini, it's just game. There is nothing on his team outside of a Yachi Berry. Garchomp will take a Glaciate, it'll still take 70%. Thick Fat, Fully Spadef Miltank will take a Blue Flare in the sun at +2, but only the one. Can then T-Wave it, so that's a bit of an issue. And I think a Fully Spadef Mega Blastoise has a chance to live Solar Beam at +2. Outside of that, I think Umbreon can take a hit but can't do anything in return. And that is it. I am fairly sure at +2 that is the only thing that can actually check Victini at all. Any Scarfers that are like Garchomp, Darmanitan, they're going to be doing a good chunk as well. But if it's a Scarf Garchomp and I have a max health, then I've EV'd my Victini to be able to live. Same with the Darmanitan. Outside that, I don't see any potential Scarfers. The biggest issue would be if he gets the Veil up, but as you can see, he didn't bring the Veil. If he brings Veil, then yeah, that would be the one thing that kind of checks his Victini. I'd have to get rid of the Ninetales early in the battle. And yeah, Togekiss kind of baited in the Ninetales a little bit, and it definitely took a Blizzard just fine. Unless it was a Specs Blizzard, in which case he's not actually setting up the Veil. So yeah, Togekiss is more of a supportive mon this week. Dazzling Gleam will still do a good chunk to his Garchomp, his most likely switch in being Celesteela. Fire Blast doing a good chunk as well. Especially if I get to +2, both of them just die to those moves, unless they are running a respective berry to be able to resist the hit. So, getting onto the battle, I'm going to take a quick drink because I'm fairly sure I'm like 20 minutes into this video already, just discussing my team, and my voice, my mouth was getting dry, so there we go. Going into the battle, his most likely lead seemed like it was either going to be Darmanitan or Garchomp. I expected Darmanitan over the Garchomp. I thought it would maybe keep the Garchomp for later in the game, because it does actually sweep up my team pretty nicely once things like the Bulu's gone, but he can Poison Jab that. Nothing else really on my team is particularly great against Garchomp. Either means that he's going to leave it till later, or he's going to lead with it. But I felt like I had better switch-ins to the Garchomp than I did to Darmanitan. So I really wanted to lead off with my Hydreigon. If he goes into Darmanitan, I just roost up, get myself back up to full, because I definitely didn't expect Superpower first turn if he's going to do that. I expect him to probably go for a U-turn. So I'm just going to preface this by saying this entire battle is going to be a mess. It's going to look really weird. Just because we were recreating. Some turns might not make any sense. They were different in the battle. A lot of we got a couple of bits of hacks here and there, but nothing too major, I believe. So yeah. First off, I lead off with Hydreigon. He leads off with Garchomp, which is kind of a sucky lead for me, but he actually shows that he is a special Garchomp on the switch out into Aggron. And with that knowledge, I know that I can live a Z Fire Blast or a Z Earth Power. So I'm just going to set up my rocks here. I'm not sure if he's going to want to stay in or not, but he does just throw off the Tectonic Rage, and I live on a very small amount of health. And then I go out into my Togekiss. I don't expect him... I kind of expected him to go for either a Dragon Pulse, trying to catch the Hydreigon coming back in, or potentially going for Earth Power again, which meant that Togekiss kind of was a safe switch into either. And considering he's shown himself to be special, I believed he had nothing for me, outside of potentially like a Toxic like he shows here, or he's running mixed with Poison Jab or Stone Edge, something like that, which would be kind of weird, but it is what it is. Like, he's running special Garchomp, so I guess mixed is not out of the equation. And I'm just going to go for a Dazzling Gleam. I see no reason to set up, just in case he wants to go out into like his Darmanitan on the first turn. I kind of felt like setting up would be a misplay, because it would mean that he gets Garchomp for free, or he has his Garchomp at full for free, and he is bringing in his Darmanitan also for free. Whilst if he switches out to his Darmanitan now and goes into the rocks, then he's taking probably about 50% from a Gleam into rocks as well. And so he just stays in, and I get the Dazzling Gleam damage off. It does a very nice chunk. It does about 3/4 of his health. So he actually goes out into the Darmanitan, and here I just go for the Nasty Plot. I felt like if he is willing to stay in, again, he has nothing for this set, it seemed at least. And he may want to just sack off his Garchomp at this point. He's kind of put it so it's kind of useless. It doesn't really check anything anymore. And I know he's not Scarfed, so it's not really a threat to my Victini. Once it gets the Z-Sunny Day up, it's no threat to pretty much anything on my team at this point, outside of the Hydreigon. And it is like the one thing that will stop my Hydreigon set. Everything else on his team is not looking too great against it. As I'm going to go for the Nasty Plot, and here I felt like if he stayed in and went for whatever move, I can then Baton Pass into Victini, and since that Garchomp is already so low, there really wasn't a whole lot he could do at that point to actually be able to kill my Victini. So I went for the Nasty Plot as well, because if he did go hard into Darmanitan, firstly he's taking the rocks, and secondly it will force him into going for an offensive move, because suddenly Togekiss becomes a threat, and he'll want to probably go for a Flare Blitz just to do damage, and that means I can play it more reasonably. I can go out to my Toxapex, I can go out to my Hydreigon if I wanted to, and just start like making him take damage basically. So Nasty Plot seemed like a no drawback play. It does kind of suck that I can't pass it on, but it does mean I can go to my Tox Spec because it goes for the Flare Blitz, and that does a ton of damage. Turns out that was Adamant's Choice Scarf, and that, yeah, it just does so much damage. But as my game plan goes out, subbing on the Darmanitan is my safest play, as I'm just going to force him to attack. If he doesn't have Earthquake, he actually can't break my sub. If he is like a sub-toxic Protect Heavy Slam set, then yeah, he doesn't break my sub at all. It'll be a bad set, but yeah. Here I can go for the Scold, and I actually get the burn in the original battle as well as the recreation, which is kind of nice. Always good when you try to recreate something and it goes perfectly. And here he actually misses, so he goes for the Leech Seed, and I'm going down to my Aggron. At this point I'm just kind of sacking it, but he actually misses his Leech Seed in the regular battle, so to recreate that we go for the Protect on the turn that I switch out into my Aggron. I had seen Protect in the battle as well, and I did get a Thunder Punch damage off as he went for Leech Seed again. And yeah, we were sitting in a pretty good place. We got into our Hydreigon, and he hasn't seen anything from this set at all. At this point he seems fairly content with actually just sacking his Celesteela off. Against my Bulu, it can't switch in, it would be to it KO'd by a Wood Hammer. So yeah, at this point I just go for the Taunt, as he is going to go for the Leech Seed, and I actually double Taunt here, so I expect him to switch out into either the Miltank or the Zapdos, so I Taunt twice to stop them from being able to recover, from being able to Toxic me, anything like that, and it gives me a chance to see what the Zapdos set is. But since it's a recreation and I Taunt, and then I actually flinch him with the Dark Pulse that I use, so bit of hacks in my favour. I do a good chunk to it, as we actually saw leftovers in the battle. And here I'm just going to Dark Pulse again, and Blastoise is also getting chipped down. Hydreigon is just doing a fantastic job here. It's just kind of forcing him to make a play and doing damage at the same time, especially with these rocks. I 100% expect him to get rid of these rocks here, because the rocks are causing him so many issues, and with Hydreigon making him switch in and out so much, it absolutely was pivotal, I felt, for him to get rid of rocks. But if he had Defog on his Zapdos, then it wasn't happening, because I taunted it. So he goes out into his Blastoise as he goes for the Ice Beam. I go into my Toxapex, and I'm just going to sub up once again as he goes out into his Garchomp. And here the initial Dazzling Gleam damage actually did enough that it took it down to a point where Scold killed after rocks, but unfortunately in this recreation he lives on 2%. A burn would have been nice on this Scold, but it is what it is. So he's just going to go for the Toxic, and I will get the Scold off. I get a little bit more Black Sludge recovery, but really it doesn't matter at all, because I was still sitting at 72%, and when I switched out I'd be at full, so it really did not matter at all. As I actually go out to the Bulu, I'm 100% expecting the Leech Seed. Had he gone for the Heavy Slam, or for whatever reason, then good play to him. And yeah, he also could have gone for the Earthquake, trying to chip me down a little bit. It wouldn't have done much damage. The Leech Seed was definitely more preferable for him. Either way, Bulu was my switch. If he tried to predict that and go for Heavy Slam, then hell of a play on his part. But yeah, it just goes for the Leech Seed. I'm going to double. I'm going to switch straight back out into my Hydreigon, expecting him to want to go for the Heavy Slam to do damage, and that does nothing to me. And as much as it does to me, it does to him. And I'm just going to taunt it on the incoming Leech Seeds. Again, I didn't expect my Dark Pulse to actually be able to kill, so I go for a taunt there, and I double taunt yet again, expecting him to want to switch out. If he decides to stay in, then he's going to take another lot of Rocky Helmet damage, or he's going to just use Earthquake, which made no sense. And then if I took another Heavy Slam, I just roost up and I taunt. It's just a constant cycle, so I just go for the taunt here, expecting him to switch out as he goes out to the Miltank. And again, I just go for the Dark Pulse, because I believe I double taunt here. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I do. So I double taunt, but he goes for the Milk Drink on the turn that I go for, sorry, I Dark Pulse, and then I taunt on his Milk Drink, which leads us to this situation here. And it turns out that the rolls on my Dark Pulse actually did more damage, so where he was taunted, he had to go for Body Slam, and he actually lived on 1% in the actual game. The rolls were slightly in my favour on the Showdown recreation, and he actually gets the paralysis on me on the turn that he goes down, I want to say. No, sorry, he gets the paralysis. I go for Dark Pulse on the next turn. But he outspeeds because I'm paralysed, and the Body Slam makes him go down to recoil. So at this point he really doesn't have anything at all for my Z Sunny Day Victini. He's really not got anything at all for my Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu. But yeah, unfortunately he goes down to the Rocky Helmet damage here. And like I said, I'm sitting in a really nice place where both Victini and Tapu Bulu are just there, like they're ready to sweep. Not to mention Toxapex can actually sit here and stall out the rest of the game as well, because his Mega Blastoise doesn't have anything to break my sub. His Zapdos will need to come in, take a Toxic, and it doesn't want to. Celesteela, we've already seen, I can Scald, stall that out with sub as well. And also I can take a hit from Darmanitan and Scald in return. So I have 3 ways of winning basically at this point, and this is actually when we de-seed. So the difference here is that I'm sitting at about 80% because I've managed to get a Roost off, I believe, and yeah, I'm just sitting at a better amount of health as the Miltank. Okay, so yeah, the Miltank went down to Body Slam and I roosted on that turn, so I was up to 80%. But because he went down to the Rocky Helmet the first turn, we're kind of having to play it slightly differently. And I discussed this with Mid, and I was like, what were you going for? Because that actually kind of changed the outcome of the game. As you can see, he's sitting at 41%. If he goes for U-turn, he dies to the Rocky Helmet plus Rocks. And, I mean, it would be a roll. I don't know what his percentage was at, because obviously we didn't save a replay. It didn't let us do that. We have no idea what the Darmanitan was actually at going into this, so this is kind of where the recreation stalls for a while, because we're trying to work out what the best way of dealing with this is. And as it turned out, the U-turn with my Hydreigon at 80% absolutely did not KO. I was going for the Roost, I'd already clicked it, and that meant that Darmanitan was dead on switch in. He would go out to Mega Blastoise most likely, maybe go out into his Celesteela. Hydreigon picks off the kill on the Celesteela if he goes for that, depending on whether I get fully paralysed or not. And if he goes into Mega Blastoise, I go out to my Toxapex and I save my Hydreigon just for fodder later on in the game. And his Darmanitan died on entry regardless. So at this point we're like, well, the best way we can recreate this, I feel, is if he goes for a move that will hit me but not kill me, because U-turn from this range has a chance to kill me. It's a good chance it will kill me, so we don't want to really like mess up the recreation entirely by me not having Hydreigon. But me not getting paralysed in that Body Slam kind of sucked, as well as him going down to the Rocky Helmet damage. So we're now in a situation where I said to him, just go for a move that hits me and will do damage, because then that will recreate the U-turn damage, plus when he comes back in, then he's going to take the Rocks damage. So he just goes for a Flare Blitz as I go for a Roost. This does a ton of damage, by the way. That's 44%. And I'm just going to Roost back up to pretty much where I was before. And he's going to switch out as I go for a Taunt. So we tried to replay this as closely as we could, because he would have gone for a U-turn. I would have been at roughly the same amount of health, I want to say, as what I'm at now. But I would be paralysed. And because I would have gone for the Roost on his U-turn, he said he would have gone out to Celesteela next, which really would have been a misplay, because after the Rocks, Dark Pulse would kill. And regardless if we got Leech Seed up or not, I would have switched on something else anyway. So he goes on to Celesteela, and because he was just going to go for Leech Seed on the next turn, I just kill it with a Dark Pulse. And next he brings out his Mega Blastoise, and 100% if we'd been in this situation where my Hydreigon was alive in the actual battle, and I just killed off the Celesteela, then I would have switched out to my Toxapex on this Blastoise. But since Mid was such a champ and recreated all this knowing, I think he knew like fairly early on that he had already lost this game. Like he was in a bad position. I just kind of gave him the kill, and so it was a 4-0 instead of a 3-0. I know that sounds kind of egotistical or whatever, but yeah, we both knew at this point in the game was kind of done. My Scarf Bulu was just going to tear through the rest of his team, because his Darmanitan goes down to Rocks. His Zapdos after Rocks is at like 25%, can't take a Wood Hammer. The only way he really won this game was through like ridiculous Dark Pulse hacks, I would say, if he was rocking Dark Pulse. So yeah, I would probably save the differential if it was a regular season game as well, but since it's a playoff game, it really doesn't matter at all. I then go out to my Bulu, and at this point Woodhammer just kills everything. And yeah, no static on the... he shows pressure actually on his Zapdos this time, so regardless, like, it was a safe win. Had he shown static and I got static paralyzed, that was the only way he could reduce differential. But yeah, good game to mid. Really fun game up until that DC. Kind of like took all the momentum out of the game, and it gave us time to really think about the battle. And I think both of us knew the result because of where we were at in the battle. I mid didn't know whether or not Darmanitan would live, and I think we realised as we were discussing it that Darmanitan 100% did not live the Rocky Helmet plus rocks damage. So yeah, at that point Bulu just won. Victini, if it got the Z Sunny Day, just won. It, especially against the state he was running. He was running Blastoise with no Dark Pulse. He was running Scald, Ice Beam, Toxic, and Rapid Spin. I don't know why he didn't get rid of Rocks earlier, but I mean, he just wanted to get rid of this Hydreigon that was being a massive pain in the ass, and I understand that. But certainly he could have like Rapid Spinned on like Toxapex, and it would just meant that he didn't take much more damage on the switch-ins. So yeah, I feel like the Rocks really came into effect this game. Hydreigon was absolutely ridiculous in this game. Like, Hydreigon almost single-handedly won this battle because mid just had no way of getting through it. He had no way of breaking through the combination of Hydreigon and sub-Toxapex. Bulu, once certain things went down on his team, just kind of swept anyway. Celesteela got worn down just as I would like it to. I feel like taunting Celesteela is just the best way to get rid of it. It's the only time I've not had issues with it, is pretty much by taunting it. So yeah, again, good game to mid. We move on to the semi-finals, where we will face OP Jellicent, because we were the 6th seed and he was the 1st seed. He went 8-1. The only person he lost to was mid. So we've beaten the one person he lost to, but again, like, another team we lost to early on in the season. Looking for some revenge, but it's going to be a tough one. His team had a fantastic matchup. I know his defensive core of Empoleon and Goodra gave me so many issues in our first battle, although there was definitely things that I could have done to play it better. Yeah, it was a rough one the first time round, so my prep's going to be very different. Well, I say it's going to be very different. It's definitely going to be better than it was last time, I believe at least. And yeah, we make the semi-finals, which is kind of unbelievable. If I go out in the semis, I don't really mind too much. I was saying this in my front office the other day, that even if I go out in the semi-finals, like, that is far better than I was expecting. I was definitely expecting to kind of get to the, like, I was just going to not even make playoffs. I had no idea what everybody else in the league was like, but I definitely didn't expect to get into playoffs at all. I feel like potentially if D had stuck around, potentially I may not have made playoffs, because I finished 6th, but at the same time I would have taken that last battle of the season slightly more seriously. I would have played better. I would have known that I needed to win potentially to get into playoffs, because I know that D is a fantastic battler and no doubt would have made playoffs had he stuck around, but unfortunately he did not. But yeah, being 6th in the playoffs and managing to get into the semi-finals is better than I could expect. And if I lose, I lose, but I've had a good run. And I hope potentially that I'll be able to get promoted to the main league anyway, but that's not my decision. That's absolutely not my decision. And yeah, if we can do well in the main league, that'd be fantastic, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm rambling as well, which I do at the end of every battle. I swear to God, at some point I will just go, like, finish the battle and do the outro, and then that'll be it. But have a great day, guys. I will see you guys in the semi-finals battle of the league. Peace.